Hey, good afternoon, Knicks fans. Welcome back once again. Just wanted to do something a little different today. I wanted to take a look at our matchup before the game begins. The Knicks are playing the Atlanta Hawks tonight at 7:30. I think they're playing at MSG, and I just wanted to use the method I've been using to evaluate individual players, which one's been having the biggest impact on the games. Just wanted to use that same method to evaluate all 30 teams, just so I can get at the Knicks and the Hawks, right? So I'm evaluating as a way to evaluate all the teams. You have to basically do it all together, rank them, and then you can actually compare the rank between the Hawks and the Knicks to kind of get an idea, which is actually the better team in the league. And of course, right now the Hawks are the win percentage, and also the statistics suggest the Hawks are a much better team. And but we're going to take a look at it anyway, right? The stats say they're a better team. However, with their individual matchups, we've been winning the matchups with 3-0 versus the Hawks, and so we're taking a look at it to see if what are the possibilities for the Knicks being able to win this game today. Take a look at why the Hawks are a better team than the Knicks are right now. And so the first thing I did was I downloaded all the stats for all 30 teams, and then I was able to figure out the PI or player impact efficiency instead of obviously doing it for players within the game. At this point, I just basically took all the totals for the league, right? Uh, Basically, all the stats for I took the stats for all the teams, all 30 teams in the NBA. At the bottom line, I basically made sure I had totals for all the stats, and basically then I was able to tabulate the player impact efficiency for the teams using these stats from NB. Actually, I got these stats from ESPN. Some of the stats are from ESPN.com. The remaining stats are from NBA.com. And so when I tabulated the PIE, ranked it, and of course what we see here is, if you can see, there tends to be a relationship between the PIE for each team and their win percentage, because as you see, as the PIE declines, as it declines, because I have it sorted here by highest PIE to the lowest. As it declines, so does the win percentage. It's not perfect, but in general, it declines over as PIE declines, so does the win percentage, right? And so if you see here the Atlanta Hawks, looking at their PIE, they rank 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8th, right? In terms of statistics and efficiency, they're ranked 8th in the league. However, this is not taking into account defensive stats, right? And so we know that's where the Hawks really struggle as a team. They're not a very good defensive team, but the PIE really just factors in. It does take into account some defense, but it's really just defensive rebound that is taken into account. And so it's a small portion of your defense. I would say maybe a little bit less than half of your defensive effort. That's what it's taken into account. But it's not taking into account actually your full defensive effort. How are you able to limit the opposing team? What percentage are you limiting the opposing team? It is not factoring that into this calculation. However, the Hawks are ranked 8th, and if you see, the Knicks are ranked towards the bottom of the league, where basically we're 25th out of 30th. And obviously, one of the things I've always said about the New York Knicks that they struggle with is efficiency. We don't have anyone in the rotation that plays over 20 minutes that's shooting about 42%. That's aside from Mitchell Robinson, right? And Mitchell Robinson, can't really count him that much because they can't really get him the ball, so he can't even really contribute. He can't really contribute to the team as much as he would like to, because we just have really poor guard play, and they can't get him the ball in the paint. And so this second ranking I did over here basically was I basically I found a way to combine defensive stats with the PIE, so we can basically get a better picture of how the teams really rank, right? Where the teams really stand. And of course, once we do that, if as you notice, the the Hawks do drop off a little bit. They drop down from 8th, and they dropped all the way down to 14th place, kind of like the middle of the pack. They're kind of makes sense. They're about almost they're like a 500 ball club, 35 and 36. So it makes sense. They're ranked about 15th, 14 out of 30th in the league. But their defensive issues are like it's bad enough where they can actually lose to bad teams really easily. Even if you're playing really well, you're having a good offensive game. If your defense is really bad, you can lose to like really bad teams, right? You can lose to the Pelicans, you can lose to Detroit, the Kings. There's a lot of bad teams. Even the Pacers. There's a lot of bad teams you can lose to if you have a really bad defense. And so that's why it knocks them down to 14th place. The other thing to keep in mind is Boston Celtics was ranked 11th in terms of offensive efficiency. But then once you include the defensive stats, they're basically ranked second in the league. Their win percentage, 61%. It's not the highest. They don't have They don't have one of the highest win percentages in the league, but their defense basically pushes them up as basically the second best team in the league. Overall, in terms of overall, like how good they are. And so, and I think one of the reasons why that is, they really ranked really low offensively because I haven't really looked at Jaylen Brown's numbers, but I have looked at, why is he skipping I'm sorry, I can't remember this kid's name from Duke. Kid is like, budding superstar. He's shooting about 43% from the field. As a matter of fact, when I actually ranked all the MVP candidates, I think he ranked like 5th or 6th, because I think it was like 10 or 11 MVP candidates. And he was actually on the top half of the list. Jason Tatum, that's his name. I'm sorry, guys. His name is Jason Tatum. And so, their offensive efficiency, his efficiency is extremely low. I'm not sure what Jaylen Brown is doing in terms of efficiency, but that's part of the reason why their offense struggles a bit, but they're a very good defensive team. And so that kind of catapults them on this list to number 2 in the league in terms of like best team. And so that's kind of what this list over here does. That's what this second list over here is. It's really ranking, is using this defensive factor, merging it with player impact efficiency in order to figure out what who the best team in the league is. But going back to the matchup I was talking about, Atlanta Hawks versus the New York Knicks. As you see, because Atlanta Hawks, they struggle with defense, it drops them back down. It drops them down to 14. And this is actually a pretty realistic. I think this is a realistic rank for the Hawks. And it actually sort of matches with their record as well. New York Knicks, if you notice, the New York Knicks, they have started improving their defense, especially since Kemba Walker has been out of the lineup. It has improved. Still not great, but it has improved. They're now top 8 in the league in defense. And as you see, once you include this defensive factor with the PIE, it kind of pushes the Knicks up. It pushes the Knicks up from 26. They were originally ranked 26th, and it pushes them up to 22. In terms of, they're the 22nd best team in the league. And so, there's still quite a difference between the New York Knicks and the Atlanta Hawks, and this is a pretty big gap right here. And so what are the Knicks going to do, right? And plus, the Knicks don't even have Julius Randle, so are they even going to be able to make any noise versus the Hawks? As I said, the Knicks are now ranked 8th in the league when it comes to defense. And as you see here, they kind of moved up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They are 8th. And the Hawks, they're basically bottom half of the league in defense. And so, that's a problem for them. But this over here allows us to look at the head-to-head matchups, Hawks versus Knicks. That's what this tab over here does. And so what I did, I downloaded the stats. I downloaded the Knicks stats, offensive stats versus the Hawks. That's what's on top. And then I also downloaded the Hawks stats versus the Knicks. That's what's on the bottom. And so once I did that, I kind of added, but what I did, I basically added totaled up all the stats for both teams, right? I combined all of it. These are averages, and I just added them all up together. And also, I figured out what the differentials are. So just a quick highlight of some of the important stuff. We've been basically 5.6% more efficient than they are from the field. We've been scoring about a 10.7 more points than they do each game. We've been shooting about 8% more efficient. We're 8% more efficient than they are from the 3-point line. Free throws, we're getting 3 more free throws, and we're making 2 more free throws than they are. Defensive rebound, we're beating them on the defensive rebound. So the thing that makes it really interesting, we don't have Julius Randle today, and I'm pretty sure one of the reasons that we killed him on the defensive boards is because of Julius Randle. The guy is a beast, and so the Knicks are actually missing a crucial piece in this whole fight, Hawks versus Knicks. The reason why we've been so successful against the Hawks is because Julius Randle he seems to get up for the Atlanta Hawks, and he basically terrorizes them every time he plays them. And so not only are we missing efficiency on the offensive end as a result of Julius Randle not being there, he tends to shoot like close to 50% or over 46% versus the Hawks. Also, he tends to score a lot of points versus the Hawks. I think he might be averaging, the last couple of years, he might be averaging over 30 points a game versus the Hawks. So that's a lot of production we're missing. And so, like I said, we're missing point production. We also missing defensive rebound production against the Hawks today because of Julius Randle. So I'm not sure what happens, how the game is going to play out as a result of that. But however, if we look at our the past results, like I said, we've been, we're 3-0 versus the Hawks. We're outscoring them by about 11 points a game. And then what I did over here, I calculated the PIE. I calculated the PIE for this matchup, Knicks versus Hawks, and our PIE is basically almost 55%. The Hawks are basically about 45%, and so 10% more efficient than they are. And this here is actually in a way, this is pretty good because this accounts for the defensive factor, right? Although there's no defensive stats here, but if you notice, the defensive stats for each team is basically the fact that we're comparing each team's stats one against the other. You're basically inherently including the defensive stats in there, and so basically, yes, this is the Knicks offensive stats, and this is the Hawks offensive stats. But on the flip side, this is basically the Knicks defensive stats against the Hawks, right? And so we held them to 41% from the field. That's a defensive stat for the Knicks. So just give me one quick sec. Excuse me. Sorry about that. So essentially, it's going to be a very interesting game. Like I said, we don't have Julius Randle. And he's responsible for quite a lot of the production versus the Atlanta Hawks. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. They probably will start Obi Toppin at the power forward position. I've done some videos where I said Obi Toppin is more efficient than Julius Randle. However, this is he's going to be starting versus the Hawks, so we're going to see how that goes. Although it's only one game, it's not like we have 20 game sample to see whether or not Obi Toppin is really going to be more efficient than Julius Randle as a starter. But at least this is a one-game sample for us to look at. It may not really mean much, but let's see what Obi Toppin does versus the Atlanta Hawks. Now, going back over here, I wanted to take a better look at these stats over here. I was talking about basically the relationship the PIE had with win percentage. As you notice here, like I said, as the value goes down, the win percentage for each of the team goes down as well. And so that made me decide to to graph, to do a scatter plot of these two columns here, the PIE versus the win percentage for each of the teams. And as you see, it looks like there is some relationship there. So as you notice, if you look at it as the win percentage increases, the PIE moves to the right, or as the PIE moves to the right, the win percentage increases. Now we're going to take and of course we also want to take a look at the PIE with a defensive factor. And I've been debating whether or not which is better, which one to go with, and I've been basically looking at all of them. I've been looking at basically my method, which basically just looks at like, it looks at efficiency separately, right? Um, in terms of matchups, were you more efficient than your matchups? And then I look at the production in terms of points. So did you produce more points than your matchup? And then I add in the defensive rebounds, right? And so I add in each play's defensive rebounds to the point production against the matchups, right? And so that creates basically one impact factor that I look at, and then I use that and also look at, like I said, the efficiency factor. Were you more efficient than your matchup? Then the other thing, like I said, I was also looking at the PIE, player impact efficiency ratio. And then now I've started looking at the player impact efficiency with its defensive factor, and I felt like there was something there, but I needed to get a better look at it, and so this is an opportunity to actually get a better look at this defensive factor here, the PIE with a defensive factor, and so when I basically when I tabulated these when I got these scores here, I basically matched it up to the team's win percentage, and I decided to put it on a scatter plot. And if you look here, wow, it's like this actually looks a lot better than this graph over here, right? So it looks like this moves very tightly. So it looks like this PIE with defensive factor moves extremely tightly with the win percentage, right? And we wanted to test that. That's what it looked like, but I wanted to test it. So I basically did a scatter plot. And the scatter plot did look a little better, and so that caused me to basically, run a correlation test just to see. It's in Excel, so it's pretty easy to run. So I ran a correlation test for these two numbers versus basically these two tables, because I want to see is this PIE with a defensive factor a better predictor of a team's ability to win, or is the PIE a better predictor of a team's ability to win? And so when I ran the correlation test, it did. So the correlation test for PIE with defensive factor was 0.926, and PIE by itself was 0.769, and the R squared for PIE with a defensive factor was 0.857, and the R squared for PIE by itself was 0.592, the R squared for it. And so it looks like the PIE with a defensive factor is a better predictor of a team's ability to win. And so that's really interesting. That really tells us a lot, right? And so, so we're going to basically, put a heavier weight on the PIE with a defensive factor. And, that's how we're going to look at all of them. We're not dismissing one or the other. I'm not that good at this yet where I can say, oh, I know everything about it, so I'm dismissing one method over another. It's good to look at all of these, right? And to see basically what's happening with each of these, and see if we can explain the difference why, let's say, Julius Randle with my original method, why Julius Randle was ranked first pretty often. I would say 35% of the time, 35% of the times he ranks first. But then when you start to include the PIE and then the PIE with a defensive factor, he starts to drop off quite a bit. And so that's where, us being able to look at those differences and being able to explain it, it gives us a lot more insight into what's going on. And, it's only better. And it's just, a good way for us to learn to see who's actually having an impact on our team, right? But again, just to get back to the original topic, we're basically trying to observe basically Hawks versus New York before the game began. We're trying to figure out what the Knicks' chances are of winning. Normally I would say the Knicks have a fairly good chance because it seems like we have their number in head-to-head matchups with Julius Randle especially, but we don't have Julius Randle, so we don't know how that's going to go and how the offense is going to flow. And but we're going to take a look. I wouldn't be surprised if the Knicks won because we seem to match up well against them in the regular season, and because the Hawks have just a very bad defense. So I would not be surprised if the Knicks win. Then again, if the Knicks, we struggle with efficiency, if it's, one of our poor shooting nights, then, then it could be a problem. It could be a problem for us tonight. So it could go either way. But if I had to go out on a limb, I'm going to say the New York Knicks win this one. Just mostly because the Hawks' defense is so bad that you can actually, when your defense is that bad, you can lose to anyone. It's easy for you to lose to anyone, and it'll be easy for you to lose to a bad offensive team like the Knicks, and so that's the issue with that. So thank you guys, man. Let me know what you think about this analysis. Who do you guys think wins this ball game, and what do you think about the way I'm ranking these? Like, subscribe, and also comment below. I'll be more than happy to respond.